everyone. Thank you again for being a part of the Attract Love Summit. I just want to welcome you again. I hope you've had some great moments with the past 2 days that we've had speakers. Today we'll be having Nick, and I sent out his bio, but I'll definitely tell you more. For those that are new, I just want to tell you why we're doing this summit. My name is Chanel Bullock, and I am a relationship coach. And give me one. Sorry, I was hearing myself. I think I had the YouTube page set up. But I wanted to let you know about the reason why we decided to start this summit. It wasn't a long ago, myself, about 4 years ago, that I had so many issues, attracting the wrong guy. And I was really frustrated. And, it took me to go on a personal journey to really figure out what was going on. And I was able to use, a lot of the strategies that our speakers are talking about today to really be able to build a solid foundation and be open to receiving love. And I was finally able to do that. And after it was, put it out there, it happened so quickly. And I've been in a really happy relationship for the last, 4 years. And I'm a social worker, so I've actually used those same tools and strategies on clients and, people that I know in my own personal relationship. So I wanted to be able to share that journey, those strategies and tools with you, in this summit. So I hope that you're enjoying it. So we have Nick, and he's an amazing person. He's an author. He has his own blog, Confessions of a Terrible Husband. He's just written a book, and he has so much to say at the moment. And I would love for you to hear what he has to say. So I'm going to hand it over to Nick at this moment.
Hey, well, thank you so much for having me. I am super excited about being here. It's funny, with my brand and my book and my blogging and my podcasting, I talk about years and years and years of being a terrible husband and what that means and what I did to turn that around so that way my wife and I can have a solid foundation to pass along to our kids. And it's funny because you mentioned that you spent years or years ago you were attracting the wrong types of guys, and I guess my wife did that too. But I fortunately have taken the steps to really focus in on how to improve my relationship, and I help others do the same with theirs. And through that study and through the 2 years, really since over 2 years of reading everything that I can and engaging with people and coaching people and finding mentors and coaches of my own, I've learned quite a bit about what it takes to be a solid spouse from my perspective, or at least as it applies in my relationship from the husband's perspective. But from coaching and mentoring and really engaging with men and women and reading a lot of studies and books and other materials on marriage, I've been able to identify some of the key ingredients to starting a relationship out on the right foot and growing it, and even adjusting as time goes on, the minor tweaks. A friend of mine who is the retirement answer man, Roger Whitney, he talks about the best thing you can do in a relationship is never have a big conversation. So there's never a point where you sit down and there's this big conversation that's a good thing in a relationship. So he focuses on helping people with the little conversations, have these little conversations, these little moments, so that way things get resolved before they get big. And that's really a message that I've applied to my marriage and help others apply to their marriage. But what I'm excited about here today is that I'm getting to talk to you about how to get started. And all of this reading and writing and engaging in coaching has helped me identify some not so known or not so talked about places to find love that's set up to last. So where do you go to find here men or men and women to to start a relationship with, and what mindset can you go into it with to set yourself up for success. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, but to the extent there are questions about relationships and growing relationships, feel free to ask them. I'd love to talk to you about anything that's on your mind that you're particularly struggling with or curious about. I write, I speak, I coach, and I did just release the book, Confessions of a Terrible Husband, Lessons Learned from a Lumpy Couch. It just came out in the last month, the last few weeks, and it's hit 3 bestsellers lists on Amazon. So I'm super proud of that and super excited that I get to share my message and my story with people, and that it's really connecting with them.
Nick, I just wanted to let people know that they can go to the Facebook event page, and I'll put that on the comment section of the YouTube video, or they can also email me directly at info.chanel, SHAWNIEL, Bullock, BULLOCK, @gmail.com to send your questions. I know a lot of people have been posting them on the Facebook page and texting me, so I know Nick is ready and willing to answer your questions.
Absolutely. So whenever you send them over, whenever you want to ask me any of the questions, that's great. I do have a short presentation, and if you see this in the slide, this is the book that just came out. I'm super excited about it. So I appreciate you guys having me here because I get to talk with more people about improving relationships and starting relationships outright. So I'm going to do a little screen share where I talk about this study from 2015, just earlier this year, about where people actually meet folks who they end up in long-term relationships with, how they start out, how the people, it's a survey of over 2,000 people, and then another survey from 2 universities in 2014 where it talks a little bit about some of the feelings and some of the things that go on inside as you get into a relationship that can help your relationship improve or help it last. And just being knowledgeable about these things, just like with Confessions of a Terrible Husband, I improved my marriage so much just by being aware of all of the things that I was feeling and I was thinking. So that way I can remind myself that some of these feelings are just that. They're just feelings. If I come home and I'm frustrated, it's a feeling of frustration. It has nothing to do with my wife. So just being knowledgeable about some of these studies out there and some of this information out there can go a long way in helping you when you're feeling perhaps some of these emotions that go along with some of the ways that folks meet people. And you can remind yourself that, oh, this is natural during this process, and this is something I just need to be aware of. So I'm going to share my screen, and I think it's going to look a little buzzy for a little while as I switch over to it. Can everybody see the presentation slides? Well, yeah, okay, so it looks like it's working. I'm not getting any, so I'm gonna actually come back over and stop sharing just so, because I can't hear anything when I'm sharing. So did that work? You could hear them okay? You could hear me and see the slides?
Nick, they can't respond, so
okay.
I did see them, and I'm
Okay.
also checking the YouTube page to see what they're seeing, so you can try and I'll let you know. I just had it on you. Okay.
And you can even text me. I'll just put my phone over there so I can see if you do need to get in touch with me and I can't hear you on the screen.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, so let me screen share again. All right, so finding love that's built to last. I love this topic because it really gets at the beginning of relationships. And for me, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story in one of the first slides about how I met my spouse. So before we get into all of this, all of these data, and it's not even data, but all of this information that several people have been gathering over the last couple of years, I just want to start this out as being, if you don't meet your spouse one of these ways, it's not the end of the world. Believe me, when you hear how I met my wife and that we're still together over 10 years later and 7 years of marriage, with focus, with love, and really with mutual respect and patience, relationships can really do great, no matter how you met them. But we're going to talk a little bit about, if you're out there, if you're looking for love, the best some of the best ways, according to these studies, to find people. So this is my story. This is my book cover. That's me. And that's not my butt. That's a butt double. And but that's my website. So my story started in 1995, and I promise I will not take you through 20 years of a day-by-day blow, but I was dead at the scene of a car accident. When they found me, I had no blood pressure, no pulse. I was unconscious. My eyes were swollen out of my head. I had a seizure. I had lost body functions. I was just on the edge of not coming back. And the fact that I'm here with you today tells you that my story at least had a happy ending that day. There were some bumps and bruises, quite a bit, but I'm here, and I'm here talking to you. So from that moment, I made it my life goal to build wealth, to focus on my career, so that way if I should die young, I would not have to worry about leaving a family behind, because I knew someday I wanted to have a family. So I wanted to save money, and I hustled and I hustled and I worked, and I went to undergrad and law school, and right now I still practice law during the day, and I coach and podcast and write only at nights, and do things like this with you and share with you at night. So I spent the next 10 years really just focusing on my career, and it consumed me until one day one of my worst fears came true, and that's when I got a phone call on June 17th, 2014 or 2004, that one of my best friends had passed away in a motorcycle accident. My friend Mike Piccarini. Mike was just an amazing guy. He was one of my best friends, and he was up riding his motorcycle with other friends of mine for Motorcycle Weekend in 2004. Every year they invited me to go, and every year I didn't. I had a motorcycle, I rode with them. I had a slower motorcycle, a cruiser style motorcycle. They had sport bikes, and every year I didn't go. And it gnawed at me that I wasn't there, not because I could have changed anything, because I know I'm not big enough to do that, but because my bike was slower. So I know that Mike would not have been in that place at that time when the accident occurred. That's not to say that he would be with us today, but there was an additional variable. So why is this relevant to my relationship? Well, 3-4 days later, actually, I believe it was 5 or 6 days later, actually, we're at the funeral, and I'm surrounded by a group of my friends. And in that group of my friends, there are a few women who I had never met, including one woman who was just staring at her feet, engaging a little bit in the conversation, and captivating. I wasn't there to meet anyone. I was there to mourn. I was a mess. I was a wreck. But there was this woman who I just could not, I just needed to speak to. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be that guy to put the fun in funeral. So I didn't say anything. And then fortunately for my kids and perhaps my wife, but definitely me, my friends invited her to come out to dinner with us. And it turns out that she was Mike's first cousin. I had never met her before. But that was the day I met my wife, at a funeral. So all that to say, you can find love when you're not looking, when you're not interested, when you're just out, when you're just off the couch, out of your house. You never know when you're going to find it. But most people meet their significant others, according to this 2015 survey, through friends in common, or when they're out in a social setting, through work. So this is a 2015 study of 18 to 34-year-olds conducted by Mike.com. There's a link down at the bottom, and I can share these slides with you after the presentation. But what I find fascinating, it's not necessarily surprising, but it's fascinating because we talk so much about online dating, websites or apps. We also talk so much about social media. But the most common ways in 2015, over 50%, in fact, over 60% met their significant other through friends in common and out in a social setting. The third highest, you see 17.9% met through work. And then less than 10% through online dating and less than 6% through social media. Interesting facts, and all of these things I want you to take a look at And just keep these in the back of your mind, because what this is going to tell us is when we're looking for love that lasts, when we're looking for love that has deep, real connections, sitting at home, looking at online, looking at snapshots through Facebook, friends, or anything like that, these are not the things that generally lead to it. So through friends in common, through social settings, what activities are we all doing? And with me, it becomes in cultivating a stronger marriage. If I'm sitting on the couch, if I'm not out and about really dating my wife, my marriage is suffering. So all of these things, just keep in the back of your mind as indicators of the activities that cultivate meeting and growing folks for relationships. Now, here's an interesting one that that I found from this study as well. It's how most current relationships started. Now, there are three main categories that add up to nearly 100%. Platonic friends, which I find fascinating that it is the number one. Now, there's a close second, it's probably within the margin of error, but the number one way most current relationships started out of this survey of 2,400 people was as platonic friends. 35% went on a series of formal dates. 24, a little under 24, had a casual physical relationship first, and then 1.2 is other. So what does this tell us too? Look at the people who have stayed together started out, 40% of them started out casual, platonic friends. 35% were series of formal dates. Only 24% were a casual physical relationship at first. So what this all leads into, what does it tell us? We trust our family and friends. They know us, and they will recommend connections to us of folks who not only they just know are single or are out looking to meet people, but also are consistent, or their activities, their personalities are consistent with us. We're also happier when we feel supported by our friends and family in our relationships. The data behind this and behind another study tell us that how we feel, the support we feel by our extended family and friends goes a long way in the extent to which we're satisfied in our relationships. Also, we can be ourselves more when we meet in a natural social setting. Relationships that last are ones in which both people maximize their ability to be themselves, when they're not pretending, when they have common interests. We all know this. So we can be ourselves more in this natural social setting. So when we're out, if you go back a couple slides, when you go out through friends in common or in a social setting, you're relaxed a little bit more. You're meeting based on your interests, either your interest as identified as by friends or family, or as identified by the activities you're doing. And then finally, we can build a romantic relationship based upon actual common interests and a platonic start. And I think that is a real valuable piece of information, that there's not always this spark and sprint to romance at the beginning, but real solid relationships. When you look at couples who are always hiking together or always traveling together or whatever it is, that those common interests work best when they're not forced, when it's not, oh, I don't feel like going to the beach, but I'm going to go because she wants to go to the beach or because he likes to go hiking or something like that. But what about online connections? And this is when I want to bring back to the 2014 Cornell University and University of Indianapolis study that I mentioned earlier. Now, I've talked a lot about the 2015 study that really promotes, it seems, meeting in person or through friends and family or through social events. Online connections can absolutely succeed, but what this survey's found is that many people who met through friends, they have stronger ties because they felt more supported. And many people who met online were self-conscious about their unions because they felt that they didn't have that built-in backing of friends or family because of the method. Now, there's a history of a stigma, but that's 10 years ago. That doesn't exist anymore. But there's still that emotion of being self-conscious about their union and not feeling the support of friends and family. So this piece of information is just helpful for you to be aware of, to the extent you're meeting folks online or you're connecting with people online. Just have these conversations with your family about these people, and really get that support. If you reach out for the support of your friends and family and receiving it, you're surrounded by positive people, friends, positive family members can really help you in your relationship because of that self-conscious, because of that emotional reaction, at least from what this study has found. And then finally, again, online connections can be very successful. There are several studies that suggest marriages that begin with an online connection are very successful. But the key to these, it's not the online connection. It's not the technology that caused a relationship to start that leads to the success. It's what the connection between the two people is based on. If you meet someone online, you find their picture, and then you connect with them and you end up in a relationship with them, it's not based on common interests and being able to be yourself and relaxed and accepting yourself, support from your friends and family, you're going to struggle. So what I would encourage you to do is not only with your online connections, but offline connections, really focus on you, growing you, doing activities, getting out and about with things that you engage in, and you're going to find people who also love doing those activities on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. So successful relationships, in summary, they're built on common interests and activities. They're not built on just the connection. They're built on the underlying interests, what you actually do with your time, what you actually do on a day-to-day basis. Because once we're in a relationship, with me and my marriage, the days go so much smoother when we're doing things we both like to do, and we're both happy, we're both invested. There's a lot of times where I'm doing something that my wife's not very interested in. She does not like going to baseball games. I love going to baseball games. So there are some things in my relationship that we do because the other person loves, and that's great. But to the extent that you meet people through common interests, you're really going to set yourself up for a great foundation, a great relationship. Have actual and perceived support of friends and family. And that's key, is to really perceive that, really accept that support, reach out and get that support from your friends and family. Low pressure. People meet, and I'm going to talk about some specific places in just a few minutes, where people meet, where it's casual, where you're letting go, you're yourself, and there's no pressure, or very, very low pressure from engaging with a significant other, and are based on these real life wants and needs of the two people involved. So 7 typical meetup places. We have all thought about these. These have their pros and cons. I worked as a bartender for 6 years, so I've seen several successful relationships start in bars. I've also seen several not so very successful relationship starts with bars. Coffee shops, work. Now, we talked about work being a place where almost 20% of relationships started, but work is a typical meetup place. Church, school, party, grocery stores. So these are all places where you go to college, you meet somebody, and some of these things have very distinct advantages. Work, when you're at work, you generally are in the same industry, or you have in the same area, you have the same circle of activities, not necessarily what you're doing, but where you're doing them. Church, you have the same spiritual background, which is very important, it's a strong indicator as well. School, if you're in the same major, you have the same interests. So all of these things, if you look behind where they are, you can find some common interests. But grocery stores, for example, that doesn't tell you anything about the person who you're meeting. You might see what type of food they're eating, and maybe you have a common connection that way. But just the fact that you're at the grocery store and someone else is at their grocery store doesn't say much about whether your connection will be. So what I like to focus on when I coach people on finding relationships that are based on these solid principles, I like to put them in places where there's 2 or 3 or 4 things, aspects about the fact that the other person is physically there that tells them that they have common interests. So why are they inefficient? I'm such a data guy, a numbers guy, that I use geeky words like inefficient with these typical places. But
Sorry,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. I
No,
actually have a question.
great.
Someone wanted to know how can they be more approachable, when meeting in public? What are some thoughts about being more approachable?
That's a great, I'm writing that down, but that's actually the second to last slide, I believe, in the
Oh,
presentation.
nice.
Where, what if you're shy? What do you do if you're shy? And it's a similar, so I'll talk a little bit more broadly than just being sly, but
Okay.
sly. Yeah, that's a way to be very sly. No, so how can they be more approachable?
Mhm.
And I'll make sure I address that a little broadly when I get to that, but that's a great question, because
Great.
at one point that's really important is that just remember that uh, if it's a woman looking and they see a guy in a place where it could be, where it tells them they have things in common, the guy is probably also shy or probably also self-conscious or whatever it is. So the guy's probably feeling a similar thing. Not every guy is outgoing, just like not every woman is outgoing. So we all struggle with this. So I'm gonna share some things, not only just with that mindset, is to know you're not alone in that setting, but some practical things on how you can be more approachable and how you can also be able to approach with a little bit more, I don't know if it's confidence, but just a little bit more direction. So great question. So, but why some of these typical places to meet are inefficient? It's because of this aspect of it doesn't tell you much about the person who you're going to meet. So you might find the person attractive. You might see what type of food they eat. You might know that they go out with friends if it's at a bar. You might know that they have a job if they meet at work, or that they have a temper or something and you know to avoid them if it's at work or something like that. But it doesn't really tell you about their activities when they get home, because that's where life is. That's where the relationship is. That's where the day-to-day in the trenches, building a relationship and a family is once you get past the initial hellos. So they're often high pressure. In a bar, you're in a bar, I mean, that feels high pressure. Everyone's there, you're all, dancing or whatever. You got to wear your best clothes or dance your best moves, or not if you're me. That's why I bartended, because it was so much more comfortable on that side of the bar. And they're often high risk, and they mix right into your routine if things don't work out. So if you meet someone at work and it doesn't work out, you got to see them every day at work. Sometimes there are rules against it in work, but if it doesn't work out, that's where you earn your money to support yourself and to support your family someday. And church, if you go to the same church or synagogue every week and you meet someone there who also goes there every week, you either have to see them there or it's just uncomfortable. So some of these ones are inefficient, or they're not ideal places because of this mix. Again, we're trying to get behind the place. What does the place mean in terms of your day-to-day, your tendencies, your preferences, and also theirs? So here are 7 alternatives that promote lasting love. And I love these because each of these, and some of them you'll see restaurants, but I'm gonna elaborate on that one a little bit. But you see each of these things will tell you what the person is actually like, or at least what they like doing. Meetup groups, there's a great website, it's all over the United States and I believe abroad, called meetup.com, meetup.com. And what that is, it's a collection of local groups based on common interests. You can be hiking, you can knitting, entrepreneurism, anything you can think of. There are meetup groups within probably 20 miles of any suburban area. You will find a meetup group with at least probably your top 2 or 3 interests. So joining a meetup group with a friend who also has that same interest is a great way to get into a setting. If you like, I use hiking as an example all the time, but you won't go hiking in a group of 5 to 15 people. If that's something that's important to your life and that's something that the person there is out doing as well, that's a great way to know that this person's probably a health or a walking or a hiking. They probably have all these interests in common with you just because they made the time and effort to join one of these groups. It's totally free unless you want to start your own group. And then it's really a minimal charge. I think it's $50 a year or something, or a quarter or something like that. And that's the beauty of it too. If there isn't a group, if there isn't an actual group that you can find with your number 1 interest, you can start your own and reach out and have other people join it. So join these groups that are focused on the things that you love to do with your day. You're going to meet someone there, whether it's just a friend or whether it's a potential lover who also loves that. So your activities are going to be aligned from the start. Book clubs, and not just any book clubs, but book clubs on the types of books you love to read. There are several people who love nonfiction or fiction or romance or whatever. You look for book clubs where people are telling you they take the time to read books on this topic. These are things they enjoy. They likely enjoy reading, right? They likely will enjoy similar movies to you, similar TV shows, similar activities. So book clubs. And restaurants. The thing about restaurants, and even bars, restaurants will tell you a lot about a person. If you want to meet somebody who loves sports, going to a sports bar on a Tuesday night for a big game, whether they're drinking or not, I mean, that's something that you obviously want to monitor, but will tell you if you're there and someone else is there, they love sports enough to go out and watch a game. And they may like it in a different way. You can also do it from home, but the type of restaurant, the night, the type of food that you like to eat, you go to these restaurants, they will tell you about the other person who is there. Now, restaurants, sometimes they're a little closed off. This is sort of the approachable question too. Sometimes they're a little closed off because everybody's in their table, but at their own table. But you go with two or three friends, you have a nice time at a restaurant that tells you the type of food that you enjoy or whatever. And having friends there can be a big help. Asking to join tables. From my nightclub days, several of the places I worked were also restaurants, and some of the coolest connections that I saw people make, obviously I didn't have a long-term interest in, or not interest, long-term vision into their relationships, were tables of 3 men, 3 women, 2 men, 2 women, joining together and finishing their meal together. It seems so weird to do, but it creates a great night. Let's just have a meal, nonchalant, exchange your phone numbers and move on. It's a low pressure way to have a date. Finally, sports teams. Joining a sports team. You join an indoor soccer league if you like to play soccer, or joining some sort of intramural team. You'll meet people who have the same activities. Volunteer activities. If you volunteer at a charity or at even an event, sometimes there are events like, say, Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University or whatever comes in your neighborhood or something like that, and they're looking for activities or volunteers for their events. You meet people with similar interests there. Health clubs, not a gym, not I pick things up and I put things down, but health clubs, classes at health clubs. You'll meet people if you're really interested in exercise. And then finally, lessons or performance groups. This one's a really cool one. You take guitar lessons, or you take piano lessons, or you join an a cappella group. You're going to meet people there, whether they turn into romantic relationship or not. But these are people, and remember, 40% of the relationship started out platonic. But these are the places where you're going to meet people who are who have similar interests. So what does this mean? It means get out of the house and join these things. Really focus. And the beauty of all these things is if you love those restaurants, you love sports, none of these have to be expensive. Restaurants could get expensive. Book clubs are cheap. Volunteer activities are time. Meetup groups are cheap or free. All of these things will help you feel more confident, help you enjoy your life, help me, just like I've gone to several meetup groups, restaurants, sports teams, all these things, just as part of my life. And it makes me feel better about myself. Health clubs, lessons, I'm more confident. And if I were in the market, I meet several people there. Now I just meet friends who have similar interests as I do. So here is a slide basically telling you everything I just said, that these things get you out. These things get you doing activities. You gain the confidence. You gain skills. You become a better singer if you join a group or whatever. And they get you entertainment. They pour value into your life irrespective of the relationship benefits. And that's key. You go to a bar or you go to a typical place where you meet people. Churches are great to pour value into your life. But some of the places are they're just time spent unless you're out there really enjoying it. If you're there just because you feel like you need to go and meet people at something, then it's not pouring value into your life. But these things are going to pour value into your life irrespective of relationship benefits. These people will share the common interests. They're often low pressure and promote platonic, friendly connections at first, which is one of the strongest ways to have a lasting connection. And they're often lower risk and don't invade your daily routine if things don't work out. If you join a meetup group and you go hiking and the relationship doesn't work out, you can still go hiking. You can go hiking different days. You can go hiking different places. I mean, it does not completely close off or make something that's one place every day or once a week, an integral part of your routine, uncomfortable for you. So, ways to approach these meetups. When I say meetups, these alternative places. One is choose the right activities. Choose them based on what you enjoy doing yourself, not based on where you think it will be a good place to meet people. Start engaging in these activities that you want to work into your life more and more. These are things you enjoy with yourself, alone, or with friends. Totally cool to bring a friend with you. Now, focus on meeting people rather than finding a date. You're there, you're enjoying yourself. It's totally casual. You'll totally be yourself. You're just meeting people. This is starting to get into the how to be more approachable question, but also how to be a little bit more outgoing, be friendly, just smile and break the ice. Now, this is a great way when you're at an activity, you're in a book club, or you're at any volunteer activity, ask someone who you either are attracted to or you feel like a good connection with to be your partner. Hey, you want to help me unload the boxes and stuff? Excuse me, do you mind? Have you read this book before? Or anything, like if it's a meetup, if it's hiking, or if it's knitting or whatever it is, just get next to the person, ask them about their experiences with them, ask them for a recommendation, offer them help or ask for them help. Remember, guys are shy too. I remember when I used to go out, I'm an outgoing person, but when it came to approaching women, oftentimes I'd just sit in the side of the room because I was self-conscious. We don't want to be rejected. And most of all, have fun. Women are, I can tell from my perspective and from the folks that I've worked with and just friends and mentors, women are so much more attractive when they're smiling and having fun. There's something about the light in a woman's eyes when she's genuinely having fun that is such an attractive quality. So what if you're shy? Well, there are some silly things you can do if you're shy, but there are also just some real practical things you can do if you're shy. Practice striking up conversations. I believe this comes out of, there's a story, I think it's in Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, where you're approaching people to make sales calls or something like that. And he talks about what if you're shy. And he says, literally, walk up to strangers on the street, walk up to women on the street for guys and just ask them for their phone number, or just walk up to strangers and just ask, like, I don't really buy into the ask them for the phone numbers one, but strike up conversations. Say hello to people that you see on a daily basis. Ask an extra question. This could be the teller at the grocery store. This could be anyone. You don't have to necessarily go up to random strangers, but start talking to people who you see every day, but you don't know much about them because it's part of a transaction of a day. Someone who, your breakfast shop or something like that. Focus extra hard on doing activities that you feel the most comfortable and confident doing. These types of activities that I'm promoting as places to meet, based on these studies, places to meet significant others, these types of activities should be places where you feel more confident. When you are more confident, you can engage in the activities, and that engagement in the activities, if it's an indoor soccer league, it's a team sport. You're going to be interacting with people. You're going to be high-fiving. You're going to be passing the ball. You're going to be doing all these things. If it's a book club, you're going to be talking. You're going to be discussing the book. So the activities can help promote these, help promote the engagement. And then finally, change up your routine. There's a great book, and I know the book has, it's a small book. It's formed the basis of several coaching practices, which just released this in the past year. It's called 37 Days of Different by Camilla Cragis. And I have a link right there on the screen, aterriblehusband.com/37 days. That'll lead you right to Amazon if you wanted to pick it up. And what the book is, I actually was honored to write part of the foreword for it because I had a preview copy of it and just really, really enjoyed the book. And it's a way to promote getting out of your routine. 37 simple things to do over the course of a month and a week or so. And why 37 days? Well, because it's different. Everyone has a 30-day plan or a 21-day fix or something like that. So change up your routine. Start making different not so different. Start being comfortable with doing things that are different. So it might just be your route to work or the time you leave for something. Just changing up the things, get you a little bit more comfortable with different. And if you're shy or if you're not sure of yourself, go in these situations to be approachable. Just get used to doing things that are a little bit different. And remember, you really, when you approach somebody, the worst thing that you can hear is, "No, thank you, I'm not interested," or something like that. And that hurts, and I know that hurts because that's one thing I feared. But the more casual, the more you speak with people, the more you change up your routine and you get comfortable in what you're doing, the easier that's going to be. So I really would encourage you to take a look at that book just to change up your routine a little bit and get your vision focused on different things. And then finally, keep smiling. Again, I can't emphasize it enough. A smile is pretty much all you need to tell a guy it's okay to approach me. Not a creepy smile. Like with me, if I'm thinking that, I'm sure my smile would be pretty creepy. But just keep smiling when you're having fun, and have fun in groups. Bring friends who you're comfortable with you, not just as part of a day out. Your friends will get you more comfortable, and they can even help you join groups with guys and strike up conversations with people that you want to meet. So that's me. I'm going to stop sharing now. If you have any questions on this, I can come back to it and a particular point. But otherwise, I just wanted to make sure I left about 15 minutes at the end. So if anyone had any more questions for me about any of this or anything else, I could have time.
Thank you, Nick, for such a great presentation. I think we do have some questions here.
Great.
All right. We have a question, and let me just get that for myself. Okay. The comment says, "We always hear that men are simple, but how can we be sure we're not turning a guy off?"
Turning a guy off by doing too much, perhaps, or?
I can ask for clarification, but.
Well, that's all right. So I'll talk a little bit about it in general.
Okay.
If a guy's calling you and reaching out to you, he's not turned off. I know that guys they talk through their actions in general. So if there's a guy might have a legitimate reason or just a tendency to not call back right away or anything like that, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But each guy has their own personality, they have their own style. If there's a guy who just goes out once a week and he likes to stay home during the week, and you know that about him, and he reaches out to you for that one day a week, he's interested. He's not being turned off. If he's engaging with you in activities like that, if he's offering things, I mean, any effort that the guy is making is pretty much a strong indication that he's interested. Guys really have a tendency to pull back and stop trying when they get turned off, even if they're not the types, especially if they're not the types to have a frank conversation. So I would just guys are simple, absolutely. But for the most part, guys want casual, and not casual as in casual romance, casual as in they want to be themselves and they don't want to have to try too hard to impress. And part of some of these things, some of these activities and how you meet can go a long way in laying that foundation, because they want to be able to do things that they like without feeling like they're trying too hard. And if you're meeting them, you actually have common interests, that'll be great for the dating. And then finally, most guys, if not all, will want time with their friends. And don't take that as an insult. That's not him pulling from you. That's just a real, it's a great part of a relationship when both people feel comfortable that they can spend some time with friends, both the girlfriend, the boyfriend, the husband, wife, whatever, without feeling the pressure that they're going to hear it, or that they aren't giving enough to their significant other. Oh, I think you're unmuted. I don't hear you.
Sorry.
Hello?
The other question that the person, she has a follow-up question, as far as keeping that person, your man, interested. And I want to ask it in a two-part question, because I know you're married and you've been married for 10 years. So how do you keep your wife interested, and how does your wife keep you interested and engaged?
Well, a lot of it has to do with, so I'll start with, how do I keep my wife interested?
Yeah.
There are great tools and great books that I've read on recognizing tendencies in myself and also in my wife.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a great book called The 5 Love Languages, and it's by Dr. Gary Chapman. And he talks about 5 different ways that people feel loved. So, and they are several different things. For example, some people like little gifts, just small tokens of appreciation, even just to let them know you are thinking about them enough to pick up a flower or pick up a little knickknack or whatever it is. Other people like words of affirmation. They like to be told thank you and that they're great at something. Some people like physical touch, and that doesn't mean necessarily real romantic touch, but holding hands, putting your arm around the person, walking side by side, shoulder to shoulder. Mm-hmm. So there are 5 different ways, and I really would encourage folks to get that book. It's a great book to tell you how you feel loved and also how your significant other feels loved. So my wife, for example, she loves acts of servitude. So that means doing things around the house. So I know I can get more love expressed.
Oh, it looks like.
Oh, am I back?
Yes, you are.
That was weird.
Okay. There was 2 of you.
Well, I think one's enough. So I know that I could express more love to my wife by emptying the dishwasher than I ever could by a romantic night out in town. That doesn't mean we don't go out on dates or things like that, but it means I know that I can tell my wife I love her every day in a way that she feels it. Not because what good is telling someone, expressing something to someone if they don't feel it? So I want my wife to feel loved, and that keeps her interest. So I can, by every day, by cleaning up after the kids, by giving them baths, by tucking them into bed, those are the things that I can do to show my wife that I love her in a way that she feels it. And then for me, I am a words of affirmation guy. It's not a bad thing, but I like for my wife to say thank you if I do something, or to tell me that I'm smart or whatever it is. So she knows that she could, if she says, "Hey, you're strong. Can you move this?" I'll jump up faster than anything. But I don't really care too much. I don't feel loved by acts of servitude or something like that. So one thing is to really know each other and express love to each other in a way that they feel it. So if someone really likes going out on dates, then going out on dates, spending time with them is key to that relationship to keep them interested. But they might not care if you bring them gifts. My wife doesn't really care. We have flowers here on the table, but my wife doesn't really care too much about that stuff. She cares more about the things I'm doing, the time I'm spending with her. So that's one thing I would do is really focus on them. And the other one is, my wife and we just did this, and we took a personality test together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, ours is the DISC profile. So we took this test. You can get it for free online, a really short report, or you can pay something like $30. You get like a 30-page report that tells you the tendencies based on a very short 5 or 10-minute multiple choice question, each of your 10 personality tendencies. So that helps us understand each other from a conversation perspective. So combining that with real knowledge of how each other feels loved, it gives us so much opportunities to just change the little things we do every day to touch them in a more meaningful way.
Yeah, and that sounds great. So any advice for the people that are just having that initial date or two? Sometimes I come across some of my clients that are concerned when the man doesn't hit them back, message them back right away, and they feel a sign of rejection and kind of give up. So how do we as women keep our new dates engaged?
Well, I think a lot of it is there's only so much you can control. And the only thing you can control is you, obviously. Learning the guy's tendencies is tough when you're first meeting them. There are some questions where you can just have, when you have this conversation, the initial conversation, one question you can ask to start getting to know them a little bit is, so tell me a little bit about yourself. It sounds like a weird question, but if the person immediately responds and says, oh, well, I'm a lawyer. I went to Boston College Law School, and I have a commercial litigator for 10 years, and now I'm in-house and I do corporate law. I mean, you know, based on that response, that that person is likely a strong personality, is likely someone who considers themselves really busy. But if there's someone who just says, well, what do you want to know? That tells you the person is, in the DISC profile, it's a C or whatever. It means the person really wants to please you. So they don't want to give you the wrong answer. So if you start telling this person, asking the person to tell you about themselves, you can read into their tendencies a little bit based on their response. So if they respond in a way that makes you, that tells you that they're busy, they're overwhelmed or something like that, you might not get responses right away from them. If they tell you something that if they ask you, well, what do you want to know about me? That's might be someone who's more inclined to get back to you right away. So just talk with them a little bit about it. And if they're not responding to you right away, you give them some time, and just, it's almost impossible. It's natural at the beginning of a relationship. The beginning of almost every relationship, you don't know the person very well. You might know a few things about them if you meet them in the right place or through family or friends or something like that. But give yourself and give them some grace. It's until you know that they're not responding because they don't want to talk to you. It's you who feels that. It's not them who's telling it to you. So really just focus on giving you both some grace, and then perhaps it might be your interpretation of something that is not necessarily the way that they mean it.
That is actually a great insight, because I come across, a lot of people that feel that rejection and they don't give that person a chance or even inquire why. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Eva has a question. She says, what's the biggest insight you've gained from being a terrible husband?
Well, it's that you can do so much. You can do all the big things right, but if you do all the little things or enough of the little things wrong, your relationship will suffer. In my case, I didn't prioritize my family. I worked from my car accident. I worked my tail off to make as much money and be as successful in business as I could, that when I wrote the book and I counted out where my wife was on my actual priority list based on my actions, she was fifth. And yeah, I feel that way about me too. But money was number one, because I thought money would just trickle down and support my family, because I was working to put food on the table. And that's drama. I mean, you don't need to work 80 hours a week to put food on the table. Food's not that expensive. Then next was my job, because my job was the thing that gave me the money to put food on the table. Then after the job was me, but not in like a personal improvement, self-fulfillment type of way. It was me as in my life goals, my vision of my future. Not finally, right before my wife were the kids, I thought that I needed to worry about the kids because they couldn't defend themselves. They weren't adults. They couldn't make their own choices. And then whatever I had left, I spent pouring into my relationship with my wife. And that wasn't a lot left. That wasn't a lot of time. That wasn't a lot of energy. And it was with noble goals. In my mind, I was doing what was best for my family, but I wasn't intentionally putting her fifth. But in my mind, I thought I was doing the right thing for my family, and I was really leaving my wife way down my emotional list when she should have been on top. I was gentle with her, was faithful to her, But so I made good money. All of the big things I did right, but all of the little things like emptying the dishwasher, really learning how she felt loved so I can express love to her in a way that connects with her. All these little things, being lazy at home, never committing to things. My wife would say, hey, do you want to go to dinner next Thursday? And I said, well, I don't know, I might have to work late. There were maybe 2 or 3 times, maybe 2 times a year where I would make plans with my wife and work would get in the way. So I was afraid of disappointing her by committing to something I couldn't come through with because of work. So instead of disappointing her twice a year when something actually happened, I disappointed her every single time she asked me to do something by letting her know in my words that yes, but work was more important. So work might block it. So the things that I learned was really being intentional, surrounding myself with information and people that were positive and leading down a path to successful relationship, and focusing on the little things.
Wow, that's amazing. And that definitely speaks to women because, you know, sometimes even with my boyfriend, he has good intentions. However, it's in his mind and we don't communicate about it, but once we do. And that book, The 5 Love Languages, has definitely helped our relationship a lot. Because we all do have different love languages. So thanks so much for that. Let me see if there's any other last questions before we end. It's getting close to the time. Let's see. Doesn't look that way. Nick, do you have any last words to say?
No, I just appreciate you having me here, and I hope I gave you some information to make you think a little bit, get you out and having some fun, and meeting someone you really connect with.
Yeah, that was some definitely useful advice. Hold on, I think Eva has one more question. She's had. Let's see. Here. Oh, she said she has a comment. She says, "Great information, Nick. You've done such a great job."
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, and I look forward to reading your book. And I will be sending out the link tonight so that you can go on to Nick's website to get a free copy or free copies of the 2 chapters, right, Nick? It's 2 chapters?
Yeah, I have 2.5 chapters, which is the story of my car accident. It's really the first, gosh, it's got to be about 50 pages of the book, where it brings me through the accident and what led me down the road to becoming a terrible husband.
Oh, love it. All right. Thank you guys and have a great night, and I hope to see you tomorrow. We have Heather Rice presenting, and I'll be sending out her bio tomorrow morning. Thank you.